Now, plans to give university students in England from poorer backgrounds free education for part of their degree courses have been attacked by the universities themselves. They claim that moves to have the state share the cost with the institutions are unworkable because they'll unfairly burden the newer universities. The proposals were put forward to help persuade some Liberal Democrat MPs to vote for a threefold rise in tuition fees. And the government says the plans to help poor students are still a work in progress. Here's our economics editor, Faisal Islam.
Around Britain, students are returning to their campuses with an undiminished sense of militancy following 3 months of unprecedented protests, sit-ins and riots. Today, the government's attempts to sweeten the bitter pill of £9,000 tuition fees in England were again causing controversy. The university's lobby branding a key existing plan to help poorer students as unworkable. The government is adamant that tuition fees won't turn off poorer students, but at newer universities like London South Bank, here 25% of the intake used to be on free school meals. It does appear that there will be an impact, because now there's an incentive for universities like this to turn down poorer students. For students starting next year, universities can charge up to £9,000 per year. In an effort to ensure students from poorer backgrounds weren't put off from applying, the government has proposed the National Scholarship Fund, which ministers say will help tens of thousands of prospective students. For universities who plan to charge over £6,000 per year, it will pay for the final year of tuition fees for any student who used to get free school meals. But the universities will have to pay for the students' first year of tuition themselves, and they're worried about it.
It becomes extremely expensive if they have to effectively fund a free year of tuition for those pupils. And what would happen is that the proposals would actually work as a disincentive to those universities from recruiting students who previously on free school meals, or if not, they'd have to put their fees up to accommodate the costs.
These students were key to the protests and sit-ins in the capital and are now redoubling their efforts for the coming weeks.
They tried to kind of lessen the blow of the rise in tuition fees by saying this, and now it looks like it's not going to happen, and it's just all the students that weren't disillusioned enough to protest before absolutely will be disillusioned enough to protest now.
The government thought that just because of the Christmas break students would come back pacified and having forgotten about it, then they're in for a big wake-up call.
Money to help poorer students was key to the support of Lib Dems in coalition, so this is a headache for the government. Insiders said that universities were jumping the gun and that the proposals were still a work in progress. Lib Dem Deputy Leader Simon Hughes is now the government's advisor on access to higher education, and he was floating another radical solution today: limits on the disproportionate number of private school pupils at top universities. It drew a sceptical response from the universities.
But we don't think that the solution is to be found in imposing some sort of quota system which prevents universities recruiting above a certain number of students from private schools. It would be the most extraordinary example of interference in university admission systems.
So as students return for term time, the government should expect very little respite from the occupations and from the protests, and that crucial issue of fairness, which is so important to many Liberal Democrat rebels, is raising its head again. Faisal Islam, Channel 4 News, South Bank University.